Welcome everyone to this session of Community Conversations for Technomatics, our virtual user group. This is Taryn Blake, Community Engagement Program Manager for the customer community for digital industry software, introducing another session. Our topic for today is single flow worker accompanying. And as most of you know, our host, or I should say our speaker, is Stefan Wangsau, who's a very experienced freelance simulation expert. And he's been in this space for quite a long time. He has published several books on plant simulation, is working on another, and he is very, very often found in, excuse me, our Siemens PLM community. So the major steps for the topic today are defining user-defined attributes, binding the part to a worker, and using the controls of the importer to assign the right worker. So as always, we are live today. Stefan will give the demonstration live, and then we will have time for live Q&A. You can use the raise hand button, which should be in the middle of your screen, top middle at that time, and ask a question verbally, or of course, you can always type a question in the live chat. So that's my introduction. Welcome, and Stefan, you can take the screen.
Hello again to our next session. Okay, today we will model a single part flow in one U-shaped production system. Single part flow means that the worker needs to process his part from the start to the end. And if you have several workers, the same U-shaped production system, then each worker has to do every step of the of processing for his part until the end. And so we need to change a little bit how plant simulation is mediate workers. And in this case, we switch off the automatic mediation of the worker and assign the worker directly by the controls of the importers of the stations. So we first create a very simple U-shaped production system. It consists on a source and 5 stations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1 train. We need for each station and for the source and for the train, we need a walk place. And in 2404, plant simulation will ask you what kind of transporter you want to activate. For the source, it's easy. It's only the transport importer. For the stations, you can activate the processing importer, but we also need to activate later the transport importer. And for the train, activates also the processing importer. if you don't work with the newer versions of Plant Simulation, then you need to add here a buffer and connect the buffer with the train, because I guess the train, it's quite new that the train also supports a workplace. At the end, connect all with connectors to control the material flow. And we need a broker and a worker pool. Okay, now we need to do some settings. Please set for the source interval of 15 seconds. I want to let all the stations on 10 seconds. And we need to set a time for the train, 5 seconds. So we have some processing time here for the worker. We need to activate for all the stations the transport importer. You can make it with drag and drop here by moving the workplace again to the stations, or just click on the importer tab. We need to activate the processing and the transport importer in each station. And I check this now. Importer, processor active, transport active. And in the train, we have also only the processing importer active, and the train will delete our parts, so we don't need the transport importer here. So next, I want to have a user-defined part. In 2404, you have already 2 parts here in user objects. You can also just duplicate here the part. For me, it's now part A, and I need a user-defined attribute in the part. I want to bind the worker to a part, and so I want to have in my part a user-defined attribute worker as object. And then drag the part to the source. So the source is created your user-defined part. In my case, it's part A. And I want to have 2 different workers to make it easier to observe the behavior of the workers. So I duplicate 1 worker, and I name it Hans. And I want to have a second one, duplicate, this is Heinz. And Heinz should have another shirt, another color of the shirt. You can edit the 3D property, click the tab Appearance, and then you can select another color for his shirt. for instance, green. And the worker pool should create one Hans and one Heinz. You need to switch off the inheritance first, and then you can edit the creation table. Just drag the workers here into the creation table, and then it will create one Hans and one Heinz with two different colored shirts. And then you can look what's the default behavior of blend simulation. So now already the part are mixed. Single part flow means here Hans should be connected with the part, should only move his part from the start until the end, and then he goes to the source and takes another one and finish the complete round with the part, not in this way. So the default behavior of blend simulation is in this case wrong. And so we need to connect the worker with the part. And this we can do here using the receive control of the transport importer of the source. The receive control will be called if here in this case the source will receive the worker to fulfill this service, and we can do some we can do some actions here, but it's in this case for all this controls in the importer, there's like the exit control of the stations. If you assign a control here, then you need to program also the default behavior of the worker. Okay, let's try this. I make here method, and the method I want to call receive control. And the receive control I assign to the transport importer of this source. Here, receive control. Then simulation will format this control already. We have here as parameters the importer type. We have 4 types from failure importer, setup importer, the processing importer here, and the transport importer. And we only want to connect the worker here. It's the transport importer. It's the number 3. I only want to bind the worker to the part. And question mark here is the source. Point cont is the part. Point worker. This is my user-defined attribute that I have defined. And here the table contains my exporter, or all exporters that are calling here to do the job. And but I have only one service, and so it's table 1.1. So my part is now connected with this worker. And as a next step, I switch off the automatic mediation for this worker. So so in the further steps, I need to care about the worker and the mediation of the worker, and not the broker anymore. And here you find everywhere we need to start the processing here for the importer. Otherwise, your simulation will get stuck here. But this is already in the in the blueprint of this method, and so we don't change this here. Okay, that's it. Let's have a check here. So have a look into my part. And this user-defined attribute now, I have my Hans here assigned to this part. In the next steps, I need to mediate or engage this worker for all the tasks I have to do. And these are two different tasks here. I have processing active, and I have the transport to the next station. And I can use the request control to select another way to engage a worker. And so next we create a request control. We need this method on different places, and so I create this method here. And to have the right format, I assign this request control here to the importer for the first station as request control. So again, plan simulation will format this control. And this is the blueprint here. The basic behavior is just to import. Here, just make a standard import with the broker. And this we want to change for the processing and transport importer for case 2 and 3. And there's a method import exporter. And with import exporter, I can import as a special worker, and add here is the part that's now here in the station, and add point worker. This is my attribute, I can my user-defined attribute I can use here to engage the right worker, and the same here is for the transport importer. With import exporter, I can engage one particular special worker. Trailer and setup I keep unchanged here, and if I keep it unchanged, then the broker will export the right exporter here. And this request control I need to assign to each request control of each importer now. So I copy the name of this, and then I need to add this to all importer, transport importer, request control, and here. Okay. So the receive control will be called if the requested exporter is coming to the station and want to start its work. The request control is already called if one service should start and you want to make the request for to the broker, or another way, like we just directly import exporter. And now the behavior of plan simulation should be different. So now here the automatic mediation is already off. Automatic mediation is false, and so the broker cannot use this my hands here for fulfill another service, for instance, take a new part. And so the broker can only mediate the next worker, Heinz, to take a new part. And all these stations here in between don't use the broker for the complete mediation process. And so my Hans now following all the steps of the part until the end. And here we need one more step. We need to switch on the automatic mediation again, so that the broker can use Hans again to start the next part. And so we need here a control after the end of his job, after the end of his service. And in this case, the release control will be called. And the release control we can use to make some statistical recordings, for instance, or in this case, to switch on the automatic mediation again. And so we need a third control. Release control for the train importer. If you have some doubt about these controls and when the control is called, then you can use the direct help here. And normally you have a description when it is called. It is called when the exporter worker would be released again by default. And here it's already prepared for us. We now have the processing importer. This is case 2. And I want to switch on the automatic mediation. And here I need to ask who is the exporter, because this is for all exporters. If you have mediated maybe 2 or 3 workers, then with release exporters, you release all exporters for this job. And so we need to ask first, who is the worker? And I need a table for this. With question mark imp get exporters, I can read all exporters that are exported here by the importer, and should be only one. I need to release the worker here. It's T11.0. So I need to switch on the automatic mediation again. Then I will release my worker, and then he is available again for the broker, and the broker can assign a new job to my worker. Let's start again. And now it's a behavior like it should be for a U-shape single part flow production system. Each worker will work only on one part. Yes. And that's it for today. Are there any questions?
All right, it looks like CJ's question came first. In the case of a worker only providing processing for a single station, what changes would be necessary?
If you mean not to transport in between the stations, then just deactivate the transport importers. Then the connector will move the part, and then again the next processing importer will ask for the right worker. And so you only need to deactivate the transport importer.
Okay, so Rohit says when workers take part from the store, it needs to take it from the nearest rack. How can we do that?
Okay, you can also activate the transport importer for the store or for all stores, because the rack, each rack is one store element, and then you need to look for you can look for the nearest part. You can read with get world coordinate. You can look for the position of the part inside the complete frame, and then look for the part that is near to the worker, and then move this part. And with part point move, for instance, you trigger the transport importer for the right rack. But you need to have in each rack a transport importer and workplaces. But you need to trigger this from outside somewhere, somehow. For instance, with a generator and a method.
To see if there's another question. Okay, and the question is, can we assign 3 or more workers to the station?
Yeah, in this case, in this use case, we assign a worker to parts, and we can have 5 or 6 worker in the system, but each worker is connected with one part, and so the workers are not assigned to the stations. And if you want to have 2 of them working together on one part, then it's difficult to start here. Then you need to assign the worker in the first station if you want to have 2 of them, because first you need to assign 2 workers to the first step. And for the transport importer, you cannot assign more than 1 worker, and so you can assign this to the first processing station. But it should work in the same way, but you need another user-defined attribute, maybe as a list, and then you can store all the worker here into a list, and then assign 2, 3 different workers in the request control. It's no problem to request more than 1.
And then Rohit had a follow-up question related to AGV. How can we assign or design smart AGV when the front one fails so that it will bypass?
Yes, if you use the free moving HEV, then the HEV will not care if there's some HEV in front of them, and so it just drives through the HEV. If the HEV is on a track and in front of you you have another HEV, then you can use the collision control to create some action, maybe jump over the failed HEV in front of you, or you change the lane. If you have several lanes, then you can change the lane inside the collision control. But if you have a free moving HEV, then it doesn't care. you don't need to do anything.
Okay, and Rohit replied, thank you. And it looks like one more person is typing. While we're waiting on that last question, I do have up on the screen now. Again, this is just another version of the same link to our Technomatics plant simulation forums. And then also there's a link there to Stefan's profile in the community. So you can always mention him on one of the posts in that area of the forums if there's a question about some of the videos that are posted there. I think there's some good conversation going on one of the previous sessions. So some of you may know about this. What you should be seeing on the screen right now is a slide with a link to the community forums for the Plant Simulation Virtual User Group. You can click on that link that's on your screen and it will take you to the webpage where the recordings are posted. So you'll also see on the screen right now a little animation which is showing you how to follow the topic. And to make sure that you select to receive every post in that area, meaning that you'll receive an email when something new is posted there. The only thing posted there are recordings of the sessions and invitations to register for new sessions and questions about the recordings from previous sessions. So it's not very many emails and you'll always be the first to know when a recording is available or when a new session is available to register for. So also you can see what our next 3 meetings will be. They are on Wednesdays. We usually are every other Wednesday. The next topic is how to create a simple crane control. And then we will have the other topics for the rest of the fall very shortly. So again, follow in the forums and you should be able to get that information quite easily. Okay, we've got some thumbs up and some applause. So I'm guessing everyone got their questions answered. Again, if you do think of something later on this topic, find the video for this recording and you can ask your question in that thread in the forums that are linked to here. But if not, we will see you in 2 weeks.
Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.